going on, YouTube? I am Mark. You're watching Trading with the Dummy, the place where you get entertained and educated. But of course, you're not here for that today. Today, you're here for my interviews, my monthly interviews. I have a special guest. And this guest, when I say don't judge a book by its cover, I mean it. Don't judge a book by its cover. This person is a professional investor, an educator, and the author of the Money Flow Trading System. He also has a book on Amazon that you can purchase, and he has a bunch of other courses. We're going to get into that in a second. But I actually found this person, I would say probably about 2 years ago, through another trader. I think it was Chris Johnson or something. I saw him go live with him. And at first I was a little skeptical, but then I started watching his content more and more. And I realized this guy is legit. So ladies and gentlemen, give a round of applause for Gerald Peters. What's going on, man? How you doing?
Hey, man. Appreciate you having me here.
Now, I'm glad that you're sitting down with me. So you're like actually the very first guest that I probably don't know in person. So this is a great opportunity. And obviously you're in New Orleans. We were just talking about that. So you have multiple properties. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is, where are you from initially?
Originally born in Texas. I moved around a lot. I was raised by a single mom.
Okay.
And, typical poor, sad story. We would jump around when rents due. And, so I bounced back and forth from Texas and Arkansas, and until she met my stepdad, at which time at around 9 years old, we headed to Alaska. My dad got a job in the oil fields.
What? Alaska?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was in the late, it was like right, I think it was like in 78, 79, and oil and the native Indians, they own all the oil, and they were Exxon, and a lot of those guys were really starting to kick it in up there.
Yeah.
And my dad's a computer programmer, and computers were just coming online, And so we went to Alaska, and I lived there till almost the end of high school, where I came back to Texas.
So how was that living out there? I mean, like typically I know like in Hawaii, for example, the natives aren't too fond about the outsiders.
Sure.
How are the natives out there?
Dude, I tell you, and when I don't talk about this a lot just because of the tensions in our country, but I mean, I was a straight minority, man. Like, we would fight Indian kids if it was a tension,
Yeah.
And as he got a little older, it wasn't quite as bad, and you start making friends, but it was a lot of because plus I had an accent from the South,
Oh, that didn't help.
No, Native Indians don't have a Southern accent.
Yeah.
And so I said, hey, y'all, that kind of stuff. And it was like, what's up? And so that was, I think it kind of helped mold me and shape me though, man. Cause like I was having to, become confident or whatever you want to call it as a kid, to be able to handle myself,
Yeah. So you say you lived there all the way through high school. So for about how many years total did you live out there?
Yeah. My senior year, right in the summer between 11th and 12th grade, we moved back to Texas.
Okay.
There was an oil crash, as the oil market does. It's up and down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
my dad relocated.
I have some friends who live in Alaska, but they're military. So I heard that back in the day, really the only people who were from like the outsiders were military folks, because they had a base out there, as well as people working in the oil industry. So obviously kind of fell into that category. Now, do you have any siblings, or was it just you and your mom and your stepdad?
No, just me and my mom. With my original birth father, he went on to have a family. So I have, but we're disconnected, but I have technically half brothers and sisters.
Oh man.
But
so
basically raised as an only child. Yeah.
Okay. Were you considered spoiled somewhat? I mean, in the situation that you were kind of in?
No, I mean, early on we were pretty poor. Like I said, and then, really poor. My mom was a waitress, and she bumped into my dad. He was right out of the Marine Corps, and you really didn't make any money with computers in the beginning. And it wasn't until maybe I was a late teenager that my dad finally started to kind of make some scratch,
Mm-hmm.
And wasn't there long after I joined the Army and was gone.
Okay. Wait, did you say you joined the Army too?
Yeah, I did. Where I came from, I wasn't really good at school. That wasn't my thing. I hated high school. I hated school, period. And, my dad was a Marine, and, it never even occurred to me to borrow money to go to college. Like, that wasn't even discussed. I'm gonna be honest. It must have been, but looking back, I don't even remember that as like my dad going, hey, that wasn't even an option. He was like, I don't have any money to send you to school. So And I was like, well, I don't really want to do anything. You know how they come around and ask you, what do you want to do for a career? I'd be like, I just like to have some money, man. Like, I don't want a career. Is that possible? You got that career? And I struggle with that. And so my dad was like, look, the best way to handle that, don't float around out here. Just go to the military. That'll give you 3 or 4 years.
Do you mean to tell me that you cannot do one single pull-up? You are a worthless piece of shit, pal. Get out of my face. Get up there, Snowball.
Yeah, it's kind of what I fell into as well. At age 23, I was kind of lost living in Germany, and I just didn't want to live with my parents anymore. You know, I lived in New York for a while, and I moved back to Germany. I felt like it was kind of a dead end, and my only way out at that time I felt was the military. So I ended up joining. It's funny because like you're like, I don't like school. I didn't like school either, and neither does my son. And we're having such a difficult time right now. But I'm glad to have these conversations with people like you who were not into school, but still became successful down the line. So eventually you find things. So when you joined the Army, what did you end up going in as? What was your career?
What's funny, I went in, you know, I'm listening to the recruiter and he's showing me the videos, them blowing things up and stuff. I was like, yeah, I want to do that. So I was a 12 Bravo, which the things they were blowing up were landmines. It wasn't even cool stuff, you know? So basically infantry that takes out landmines. And yeah, that's a terrible job. And then I got married to my high school sweetheart to make things even worse, right? And we have a baby, marriage, young, Army, deployed. That doesn't work well.
Yeah.
And divorced. So I get divorced and I have no money, nothing. Like I just re-upped. I was like, shit, I need another 3 years. And so I changed my job to military police.
Oh, that's even worse. I did the same thing in the Air Force. so I totally get it. Oh, man. So before you got divorced, before you even get to the marriage and everything, so when you joined, where did you get stationed at? Where was your first duty station?
Baumholder, Germany.
Oh, okay. So you were out. I mean, you must have had a good time living out there.
Oh, man. I loved it. That's why I got divorced. I mean, like, yeah, Germany was a lot of fun, obviously. Yeah. And, you know, and I went there twice. The second time I reclassed, I was as an MP. I went to Baumholder that time.
Okay. And so you did 4 years the first time and then another 4 years?
I did 4 and then 3.
Okay. What made you decide to get out at that time? Was it just not for you? Did you know, like when you first enlisted, when you went through boot camp, you were like, this is probably not for me. Did you have that feeling?
Right. I knew. And I appreciated the Army. The Army helped me a lot. I've always been a hustler. You know, as an entrepreneurial style kid, like in Alaska, I was all about shoveling driveways for money. You know, I would do things for money, but the Army really helped me narrow in like how far you could push yourself, how long you could actually work, how long you could go without sleep. You know, what does it mean to be uncomfortable or cold? I mean, just, you know, and you kind of start to base everything in life off of that. Like, how uncomfortable am I? I got many stories I can look back and go, oh shit, that was a lot hotter than this or a lot colder than this, you know? And that stuff kind of helped me carry forward. I mean, that's what I got out of the military was a sense of your own ability to push harder than you maybe think you can, you know?
Yeah. Growing up though, so, I mean, obviously you felt that you were poor. You knew that you were poor.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Was finances at all a conversation you guys ever had?
No, I don't think people really recognize. I mean, maybe they do today because there was no social when I was a kid. And I don't remember thinking I'm poor. You know what I mean? Like we were, and I knew it, but I don't think there was as much in your face to make you realize how poor you are. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but then as soon as I could, I was always hustling, trying to make money, you know, like and I remember like, we would just try to make money because we wanted to go to Bullwinkle's Pizza and play video games, man. Like, you know, when you're a 14-year-old boy, that's paradise. And I'm like, how much do I need to make, man? So I'd be shoveling driveways, slinging papers, you know, trying to get the money to be able to do that without asking my dad.
Yeah. Do you recall what your very first hustle was?
First one was actually shoveling driveways. And that was quite lucrative in Alaska because it snowed a lot. And the older people, they got to get it done. They can't get out of their house.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, so we could make money all day doing that as long as you can handle it physically.
Yeah. Yeah. And what age were you when you started that?
10 or 11. Because when I got there, other kids were already, a couple kids were already on that, and they put me onto it. And then I had some recycling can things going. That was big when the recycling movement first started. And,
I remember that. Yeah.
yeah,
We get
I
like
made
5
some
cents a
money in that.
can.
Right. I made some money in that, man. I made these boxes, and they had a state capitol building in Juneau. It was like 6 stories. I took these really nice boxes I got it was like U-Haul or something, right? And I cut a hole in them, and I spray painted a stencil on the side, like a logo. And I went to every break room in this building and put them next to the soda machine. And by there, they had tables in there on my own. Like we just did it. There were 6 of them in this building. And then every Friday we would go collect the cans. No one even said anything. We did it for months and months and months. I mean, walking out like Santa Claus.
Yeah.
And just making 20s. Like we were making legit money doing that. And one day this guy goes, "Who are you? And why do you?" And I was like, "I'm the kid that collects the cans, man."
Oh, dude, that's dope. That's dope that you had that entrepreneur skills in you.
Yeah.
So, but when you joined the military, did you have any side hustles then as well, or no?
No, I mean, no, not, I was trying to think, what was I doing in the military? I was always seeming like I was scheming to do something, but nothing on the regular. I mean, some illegal stuff like sports gambling, and it was frowned upon, but I had a guy that was a little bookie, and I would help him with the numbers and the cards and stuff, because I thought it was fascinating. Just cash business I've always found fascinating. I was obsessed as a kid. I wanted a vending machine route. And I used to try to talk my dad into fighting. I'm like, "Dad, just I'll take care of the machines." And of course, as we get older, that kind of business was kind of phasing out. I guess they still do it, but it's not as prevalent as it used to be.
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know if you're familiar with EYL at all, or in your leisure.
EYL.
It's
Oh
a
yeah,
podcast.
I watch those guys all. I watch them all.
Yeah,
the time.
they had a guy a couple of years ago that came on, and he was talking about the vending machine business, and he made it seem like it was very lucrative. And I actually had a friend who started looking into it, and quickly realized that you have to actually have it in a really good location, and you need a lot of them to make a good living. And it takes a lot of maintenance, a lot of filling up, a lot of driving. So it's not as easy as everyone thinks it is, which is, hey, buy a vending machine. Next thing you know, you're making 6 figures. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work.
As most things do, right?
Correct. That's how it works. Now, when you went to the military as an MP, how'd you like that, by the way?
I enjoyed the military. It wasn't for me for a lifetime. I think it's a good place. I think it's a great place to get out of poverty. I think the military has done more to probably bring people out of poverty than a lot of organizations. I mean, because once you get there and you're making that steady check, you like it and you become a responsible person. And
no, but I mean, like as like the cop, the position you had as an MP, like
as
me,
an MP itself.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed it.
Okay, because I'm going to be very transparent. I hated it. I hated being security forces in the Air Force. So.
I was mostly deployed as an MP, though. And in the Army, you'd have 2 types of police: base police, and then basically infantry in a Humvee. And most of mine was in, 2 years of mine was in Bosnia.
Oh, okay. As an MP. Yeah.
So it really wasn't much different than having been a grunt. I mean, I was just in a Humvee driving around. I didn't do a lot base policing, and that probably would have got pretty boring, I imagine, just driving around. But it's not like it's downtown LA. Like,
correct. Yeah.
Most of your customers are well-behaved people.
I don't have a prescription.
Sir, please wait your turn.
I know, but this is an emergency.
Hey, buddy, ever heard of a line?
Hey, have you ever been dragged to the sidewalk and beat until you pissed blood?
You did your 7 years, you said total, right? 4 years and then 3 years, and then you decided to get out. What made you decide to get out?
I just knew I had a son with the ex-wife, and I knew I was probably not going to see him very much if I didn't make the exit. I was at that age. I'm 26. Mm-hmm. You're either committing for the next 15 or it's time to go. And I left. And what was weird, my parents had moved since I went in the Army, and I had nowhere to go. So when I get out, I go to a house I've never lived in a town I've never been, and I don't know a single person. After having that kind of band of brothers thing, where it's like you have your boys, I don't know anybody, man. And you go to a bar and everybody's a civilian. it was kind of a depressing time for me. And I started in the Army, you read, you just, cause you're bored, and it's funny in school, I hated reading. I get there and I'm reading all the time. It's kind of funny. I hated running. I get there, I'm running all the time. I get out and I started jogging a lot just to keep me in that mode, and, luckily I met a good lady and she kind of supported I'm reading stuff like books like Think and Grow Rich and I'm messing around with like network marketing and just anything that I could just do that you didn't need a lot to do it. I got out with $12,000 and I paid $9,000 for a truck. I paid cash. I didn't want any debt. And I had a lawnmower and, I'm just like, I just started with that,
And you started like a lawn business, a little bit cutting grass and stuff like that.
Yeah. Started doing that. I got a state job that came real easy at a juvenile prison. And I was doing that and that was pretty easy. And I was mowing yards and I was trying to do network marketing. And so I'm learning all about selling and that rabbit hole it can send you down, and my dad, I was doing that a couple of years and then I got kind of on the debt thing. Like I can't have it. I got to there's no debt. We need no debt. And kind of got caught up in that, which was a good thing to get caught up in. And about this time, my dad relocates to a town called Huntsville, Texas. And I didn't know anything about this town, but he was working on the Y2K project. Remember I said he was a computer guy.
Yeah.
Remember on Y2K, they thought all the computers were going to stop.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah. The end of the world. That's like
the end of the world.
Young generation. They don't remember that. Yes. The end of the world. Yeah. I remember. Everyone was nervous.
And he was working on it for the prison system. Well, that town is headquarters for all prisons in Texas. And they were afraid the doors are going to open. Like there's going to be chaos in the prison system. So he's working on the code for that. And he says, man, you should check this town out. They got a 4-year college. It's pretty cool. And then my wife was, we wanted to get out of that town and she was able to relocate her job. She worked from home most of the time, but she'd be based in Houston. And so we moved and I tried college. I hated it. But while I was there, I came across a house for sale for $24,000. Like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath brick home.
Wow. Now, was this a dump back then or actually in pretty good condition?
This was a dump and it was not in it was in a rough area. And that was still cheap then. But you could buy them in that area for 60, 70 grand. You could get a decent,
Okay.
Go remember this 20 years ago.
Yeah,
so this would be like today buying $150,000 house.
Gotcha.
And maybe I'm getting it for 70. So it was pretty beat up. And I'm like, wow, and that's what, and that was my first property. And, I jumped ahead there, but during that time we moved there, I get my yard business. I mean, I hit the ground knocking doors. I'm just knocking doors. I mow yards. My name's Gerald, blah, blah, blah. I just knock doors, man. And I need money. And if I wasn't mowing, I was knocking and I'm working. I get a job at the adult prison. I went and I only work part-time. So I got a pretty good part-time job. It actually came with insurance.
That's a big thing.
Right. So I'd work 2 days a week, 2 10-hour shifts at the adult prison. I was a prison guard. And then the other 5 days I'm out mowing. I'm doing some things on the internet, anything I can do. I'm going down that entrepreneurial path. And a friend of my wife's, best friend since 3rd grade, her and her husband had done well. I'd never met them. We weren't married yet. I keep saying wife, but we weren't married yet. She said, hey, why don't you come with me? We're going to go on this trip to Wisconsin. They have a lake house. I'm like, they have a lake house? She's like, yeah, they got like multiple houses. All right. And that was, quote, you'll hear, if you follow my content, you'll hear me talk about my rich friend. He became like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Yeah, yes. Yeah. I got the rich friends and I got the poor friends, just like in that book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And he was the rich friend in my ear. And I had 15 grand saved up for mowing yards. And we were living completely off my wife's salary. She worked full time. She went to college, has a master's degree. And I had already been formulating this plan. Hey, let me do all this crazy stuff. And if one of them works, or we'll take all my money and, we'll do something with it. And then about that, all this is coming together. It's funny how the universe works. Mm-hmm. And he sat down with a pencil and showed me how to buy a house and how to rent it.
So you only have 15,000 at that time. Obviously, it costs a little bit more than that. Where'd you get the rest of the money?
Right.
Was it just like a credit card loan, or did you actually get like an FHA
Yeah.
loan? Or
No, I went. Yeah, I just got it was the bank I've used for almost all my real estate is a small local bank, and I just said, hey, let me put down. I put down 15 grand, and they financed the rest. And it was such a small amount. They did it basically as like a signature loan with the house as collateral.
Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you really honestly kind of got lucky by going out there, and then this person is kind of schooling you and telling you, hey, real estate's where it's at.
I literally just went on a vacation trip, and my mind was already prepared, and I believe there's something to that. Like the old saying, when the student is ready, the master will appear. And that's real. I mean, and I do this to people now. And if you ever hang out with me, you'll see, I'll just randomly start talking to a stranger and be like, so what are you investing in, man? And 99% of people are like, oh, get away from me.
Yeah. Like this random stranger asked me what I invest
right.
in.
Every once in a while you get a guy who goes, well, I just bought some Uber shares. What about you? Like, and then all of a sudden you got a little, you can tell if it's real, whenever you meet someone. And this guy was like that. He bought properties and he loved to talk about it. And he would talk to anybody and he would tell anybody how to get, like, if you would just sit and listen, he would tell you, get your credit right, save up the money for the down payment, get a loan. And he had taken 6 or 7 houses, sold them all, and took that chunk of money he made and bought an assisted living home. So
that's interesting.
You don't have to be a nurse or a doctor to own one. Like your employees do.
Yeah.
But just like you can own a bar without having a bar license if you own the building.
Yeah, come to think, I don't think I've ever spoken to or heard anybody really talking about the whole assistant living.
Oh, he made a fortune.
Yeah, because all you really do have to do is buy a really big building, have
That's what he did. His first one was only like 12 rooms. And it was a really big single floor property because you got, you might need wheelchairs and this and that. He had contractors make it right. Had the state come license it. He had a full-time nurse on duty. They had, everything he needed to have. And he was paid by the state. The state needs these things, and as he got into that business, he learned how, you could do this for rich people too. So then he took what he had learned doing it for like you'll see some guys are into Section 8 real estate.
Yes.
Well, the government needs those things. And so they will work with you. They're not trying to mess with you. They're just like, look, you have to change that plug out. It has to be this kind of plug. That light has to be this kind of light. They're not there to mess with you. They're just trying to get it to a standard, and he figured all that out. And then he realized, wow, you can do the same thing to rich people. Rich people need an assisted living.
Yeah, and they pay a lot.
And so his customers are paying like 15 grand a month to live there.
Wow.
Yeah. So he got private nurses. He got line staff that, he's got barbers that come in. They got an entertainment person that comes every Friday, and, they go golfing and they go to casinos, and it basically is a fun place for old people is what he tries to make it. And he got rich, very rich.
Yeah. I could definitely see that. No, but
and then he sold them all. He sold them all to a REIT, which is how I started learning about REITs. This is like Welltower and Ventura. So I invest now in a lot of these assisted living REITs.
So you would say that this was like your very first mentor?
Yes. And it wasn't ever spoken of like that. Like he never said, let me mentor you. Like I see some people do, which gets creepy to me. But because people ask me that all the time, can you mentor me? And I'm like, bro, I have 1,000 videos. I have like 4,000 hours of recorded audio and 2 books. You've read none of them. No. Like, shouldn't you have already went through some of those videos, read those books long before you asked me, could I mentor you? Because as you're reading and listening to those, I am mentoring you.
Yeah. But, people don't want to work for it. That's
what that is, dude. I'm convinced of that. The guy that comes to you and goes, hey, could you mentor me is the guy who's trying to hack it.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's trying to find a shortcut to success, but there really, in reality, there is no shortcut.
No, I go down rabbit holes. And so my friend, I got everything from him I could. Now we're just friends. And he actually is the guy that led me to Dividend Stocks. So I start doing the real estate thing, and I get to this is a key point for your viewers. He told me that stuff And I went to bed and I can't let it go.
Mm-hmm.
And that night he told me, he goes, dude, if you do what I just showed you 10 times, you'll be a multimillionaire. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, this houses appreciate, blah, blah, blah. The loan's paid down. And I can't shake that. That seems so easy. I'm like, you're telling me I only need 20% of the money. The bank's going to give me the 80. Somebody else is taking all the risk and I get all the reward. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, why isn't everybody doing this? He's like, well, it's a lot of responsibility. And I'm not thinking the bug guy, the water leak, like, you know, all the things that I'm not thinking that. I'm thinking money. And I go, oh, okay. Yeah. But if I'm willing to do that, if I'm willing to take on all that responsibility, I can make, he's like, yeah. He gives me this book. I go upstairs. I read the whole thing. I stay up till like 4 a.m. Read it. It wasn't that big. It was a little book. I come back down, give him his book back, say, all right, man, I'm going to go do this. And I left. And that year I bought 2 houses. We go back on vacation again. And I tell him, man, and we didn't talk. There's no real internet thing going.
Yeah. It was back in the day we actually had to pick up a phone and talk to somebody.
Pick up a phone. So, and he's busy, man. He's not talking. I'm nobody. I mean, he's a multimillionaire. I'm just a dude he met. I come back the next year and I'm like, dude, I bought 2 houses. I got no money because I put all my money in these houses. And he was so impressed, you know. He was like, wow. He was like, you're the first person that ever just did what I said. I'm like, what do you, he goes, no. He goes, none of my friends do this. So within, you know, wasn't that long. I'm at 10, 15. I'm just, you know, doing it. I just did it over. Just like he said, I'd wake up every day and say, I need 10 houses. I need 10 houses. That was literally what I lived for. Like you have, I really think everything, even now, my family, we live for one reason, to protect our properties.
But going back to the very first house that you bought though, right? Like you said, it was kind of a dump, right? You had 15,000, you got the rest from the bank. Once you bought it, where do you start from there? Like what did you end up doing there to end up flipping that house? Because like the average person, I think it's kind of easier said than done, right? Hey, just go buy this broke down house. In Detroit, there's a bunch of homes in Detroit. I've been looking.
Right.
There's a bunch of crap homes you could buy under $50,000 still. But how do you know that was going to be a good investment?
You know, I mean, honestly, at the time I didn't know all these things that I know now. One of the things I try to tell anybody that's my student, listen, all these acronyms like BRRRR, and I didn't know any of that shit. I was a millionaire before I'd ever even heard the term BRRRR. And now it's like the only way you can do real estate. That's how people talk. And I'm like, literally, they want to BRRRR their personal home to get started in real estate. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, no, man, go work and get money and save it and invest it. Like, stop looking for it.
What's BRRRR? I'm not familiar with that at all.
It's buy, remodel, or buy, rehab, remodel, rent, and refinance is what it's down to.
Okay.
So you go buy a house, you do sweat equity. The house is going to appraise for a lot more than you got in it. You get it rented. 6 months later, you go back to the bank, and let's say you paid 90. They say it's worth 150 now. You pull out 30 and you go do it again. Okay.
And obviously you didn't do that back then because, like you said,
no,
you didn't even know what it was. You just paid cash
it's
with a small loan.
Yeah, it's a hack. And in my opinion, for people that don't want to work.
Okay.
Our culture is obsessed with that, man. They're obsessed with not working.
I mean, yeah, especially we could go down that rabbit hole, especially after COVID, right? I mean, at that point, the government gives you money. Why do you need to work anymore, right? That's why I have such a hard time, I think, finding people to fill, I wouldn't say dead end jobs. They're labor workers, right? They're the McDonald's, the Walmart. And I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but we need those positions, right? People have to work there.
Sure.
But why go there if you're going to get a check from the government that pays you just as much or better?
Right.
Why
I mean, for me, it'd be called dignity, but I know that not everybody has that.
Yeah, it's definitely a different generation. Because like you, I have that entrepreneurship skill as well and hustle. Like even when I was in the military, I was always a hustler. And the one that stuck with me was real estate photography. I saw a niche. I was in the Pensacola area. Nobody was taking good photographs of homes, and I was already a photographer. So I was like, let me try this. At one real estate, and I blew up. Fortunately, military, they moved me away. So I had to come here to Orlando at that time. But I was always that guy within the military who always had like a side hustle. I always had one foot out, but I was afraid to make that leap until like a year ago. Not. But it's rough because I mean, you know, like you said, you had an opportunity, you listened to someone and you just went for it. You didn't care. You didn't care about the consequences, right? You didn't, I'm sure you probably weren't like, well, what if I lose the $15,000? You were just like, let me try this. I've tried all these other things. Let me try this. And you were good at it. And you bought the first one, then you bought the second one, you went back, and then you just kind of started stacking up. Because that's the one thing I do know about you. I went through your history a little bit, and I see that for one, you were promoting trading and real estate before 2020. Because, you know, 2020, all the financial experts and gurus came out of nowhere. But I noticed you're huge on real estate more than anything I would say. Like even you still do the trading stuff. I see you kind of like, it's like a mix of both, but I always see you flipping some sort of house. So you never stop doing that, I see.
Right. And even to today, every time I do it, I'm terrified and it's a horrible risk. I think people think sometimes it gets easier and it doesn't. It doesn't, man. It's scary. And I never had a high paying job. So for me to, whenever I do a deal or a piece of real estate, I'm all in. So when I bought house number 2, when I say all in, I mean, there's no money. Like I'm putting shit on a credit card. If they call me about a water heater, I hope they take credit cards. Like I'm all in. But these houses have equity value. And one time I was explaining to that guy, I was like, listen, on paper, I'm a millionaire. In reality, I'm floating bills because equity doesn't feed you, you know? So you can have a painting worth $1 million. You're a millionaire. That ain't giving you no money. You know, now rent would come due and money comes in, you know? But I would use that money, save it and do another deal. And I've, you know, along the way, well, what I was trying to get to there is like, I recently just bought a beach condo in Florida, oceanfront. You're sitting in my living room, you look left, you're looking at the ocean. But it's small, 750 square feet, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, oceanfront condo. And that was a bucket list of mine. But now I bought it with the 4th house I ever bought. So in 2006, I bought this house. It took me like 12 months to fix it. So I have to make the mortgage payment every month for 12 months. I would take all the money I made mowing yards and hustling and network, anything I was doing to make money. I go to Walmart. We didn't have a Home Depot at the time. Wherever I could go to get supplies. And we would just, on the weekends and at night, me and my family would go over there. And my kid would play in the front yard. That's where he played.
Oh, wait. So you were doing this stuff yourself? You weren't contracting?
Yeah. Oh, no, we don't contract nothing. We self-manage. We do all the repairs.
Wow. Okay. So I assume that your very first house you bought for 24 and then you kind of, you know, hired people to fix it up and stuff like that. No. So you were doing this stuff yourself.
Yeah. And then people go, well, I don't know how to do that. I'm like, no shit. Neither did I. Like, I still don't know things. To this day, I'm like, okay. Because they come out with brand new types of flooring, you know? Yeah. And I'm like, I've never seen this. And I'm go on YouTube and I'm like, how does this work? And I read the instructions and then I take a piece and I play with it. I cut it. I mess with it. Oh, okay. That's how it works. And then we start putting it in. And it's, you know, me and my wife, she's 50 something, I'm 50 something. And we get on the floor and put in flooring. And then I meet 30-year-olds who are like, well, I don't know how to do this. And it's like, yeah, no shit.
That's interesting because I just would assume that the more properties you acquire, the less you would do.
If you have money. Remember, each house I buy, I'm all in. There's no money to pay contractor when I bought the 8th house because I had no money. I just put it all in the 8th house because you got to put 20% down. So on a $100,000 house is 20 G's. So the moment I'm at 18, 19,000, I'm on the phone real, hey, I need a house.
I need another one.
Right. My goal is to go broke every day. And people don't get that unless you're a high income earner, you're a doctor, you're an engineer, for sure. Find a house, call a contractor, get a bid. They get over there. You check up on it after work. You go by on the weekend, see how they're doing. For sure. But when you mow yards for a living, you don't have that luxury.
Yeah.
Right.
That's wow. So basically when you bought that very first house, that's when you knew that this is what you're going to do moving forward. This was going to be your business. This was what you knew that you were destined to do this. Did you ditch the lawn mowing business after that? Or you just kind of held on to it?
Because I needed money to buy paint and stuff, man.
So you still did that while still working at the prison?
Right. And then, so I'm working part-time in the prison. I'm mowing yards. And when I get to about house 10, I'm making $4 or $5 grand passive, from rent. Yeah. I'm mowing. I'm making $2, $3 grand mowing. And I realized I really don't need this prison job. I'm making $10,000 a month, And I was like, wow. So I stopped going. That freed up 20 hours a week,
Wait, why did you choose that one to ditch that one instead of the lawnmower business?
Because I could make way more mowing yards than I could working at a prison.
Okay, fair.
So I'm always wanting to pursue things that don't have a top end.
It doesn't have a cap, but it was a little bit more risky though too, right? Because now you're ditching your insurance and stuff, and
everything I do is risky. I mean, I have this when I'm coaching with kids. They got 30,000 in savings, and I'm like, well. And they'll be like, well, I want to borrow this. I have 100,000 in equity in my house. I want to borrow that out and go buy a property. And I'm like, or take that savings you have and go buy the property. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, I'm like, bro, you want to be an investor? Or you want shit comfortable? Like, if I'm convinced, if you sit around waiting for it to be, the time is right, everything's comfortable and it's easy, and you're never going to do it. You're just not. You're never going to get 20 houses doing that. So, okay, let's say you borrow money out of your primary house. Now you have one rental property. Congratulations. How do you get number 2? Because the process you use to get number 1 isn't repeatable. You can't keep borrowing from your house, right? So your life has to be structured in such a way to support this idea. It really does. Most people's life is structured to pay bills, to make it through the month, to live this life. You have to fucking flip that. And your purpose is to acquire wealth and grow assets. And paying bills is second. Rich Dad, Poor Dad teaches this. The rich do not work for money, right?
Yeah. That was a great book, by the way. Even though I've heard controversial stuff about it. Actually could be completely made up. Yeah, supposedly, right?
Yeah. But the premise is the same. I mean,
it's good. It's still a very motivational book to get out there. So after your 10 houses, at that point, you were on paper kind of considered a millionaire, right? But
so along the way, you're like, I'm tired of being broke. I'm just going to flip one, and you just sell it, and they give you 130 grand. Now you got $130,000. What do? Shit, I'm back to looking for a house.
That's what you did.
But now I got money, and now I got a little money, so I can get one. I can buy a car and go vacation, right? So I get a little rest period, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, from time to time, you got to reward yourself. But it's definitely risky. It's never gotten easy. Like the beach condo, the thing I was going to tell you, I went all in, all of my money, $312,000. Every penny that I have that's not in a stock went into that thing. I paid cash for it.
So are you using that as a rental property right now, or are you just using it to live?
It's being worked on. So I got that one I put a contractor on because I can't work on it, be in Texas and be in New Orleans. That's impossible. So I went down there, stayed a week, interviewed contractors, got one that I seemed to like, good quote, good references, gave him half the money and left. And he's there now, supposedly working on it. So hopefully next time I see it, it's going to be good to go.
Yeah. Your very first house that you bought, did you actually sleep in it while you guys were repairing it? Did you do that at all ever, or no?
No, because I only lived like 7 miles away.
So you're okay. So you didn't have to do that. By the time you got your 10th house, what year was that?
2000. It was during the crash. So it was shortly after the crash because I bought 2 properties in 2008-9 timeframe.
Okay.
As the markets are imploding, and I had about $70,000 in the stock market when all that happened. Okay. And it turned into about 30.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Like how'd you deal with the housing crash at that point where you have all these? Because you had stocks, you had stuff.
Yeah, I was scared, dude. So I'm self-employed. I got 10 mortgages, or 9 at the time. Mm-hmm. quote, because in my mind, we haven't talked about stocks, but in my mind, stocks have always been my emergency fund, meaning at all costs, let's not touch these. The goal is to live off the dividends in the future. But if in that worst of all situations, it's there, you know, before a house was foreclosed on, I would pull the money from the stock market. You know,
And did you end up having to foreclose on any of the homes at all?
No. And I was really terrified because I'd lay in bed at night thinking, what have I done? I got 9 mortgages. My money's dropped in half. And here's the crazy thing. People just kept paying rent.
Really?
Like my area, I just got lucky. Like no one, and most of the people worked for the prison or they worked for the college or they were, you know, students or something. Like they just kept paying rent. Like I didn't have any problems where people said, hey, I'm busted out, I can't pay. And while it's going on all around me, you know, my dad's losing his job, all this shit is going on around me. My tenants just kept paying rent, you know?
Yeah, you're definitely lucky on that situation. We bought our very first house during the crash in Las Vegas. I was stationed there. So we bought like the area we bought. I mean, almost every single house in that neighborhood was foreclosed or for sale, right?
And this is why I tell kids, do not borrow against your personal home to go buy real estate. Because when you lose your job and you can't make your house payment and your renter doesn't pay you, you have a real problem. What do you do then? You know, what do you do if you can't make your payment and your renters aren't paying either?
Yeah, and that's when everything kind of goes to shit for you, right?
Right. That's when leverage doesn't look so smart, right?
Yeah, and that's what happened in Vegas because a lot of people were buying a lot of homes, and you know, strippers, cocktail waitresses,
right,
busboys, all those people were buying. It was pretty
everywhere.
ugly. Yeah. Now I got lucky though. I mean, we bought a $500,000 house for 172.
That's beautiful.
Yes. However, we sold it 4 years later for 215 or 240. I wish I had held on to it because now it's over $500,000. So that was a good property. I could have held on to. I tell
people, everything I've ever sold, I regret selling. Like if we were to sit here now. Yeah. And that's what, you know, I teach trading. And I'm, you know, through this process, I've really gotten into the stock market. For me, the stock market was like sports for other guys. You know, guys relax, they go watch the game, they go hunting. For me to relax at night, I'd sit in bed and read books on stocks. During the day, I'm doing real estate, I'm doing my business. And I just found it neat. And I'd read, I'm like, man, no phone calls. They just send you money. Like, you know, I was fascinated by that. And I would read, I'm like, I'd be in bed and I'd be like, you know how much dividends Warren Buffett gets? Like my wife would get tired of hearing it, you know? And that's kind of like everybody, right? The problem with dividends and the problem with the stock market is you need a lot of money in it to
I'm glad you said that. Yes.
That's the problem. But in real estate, you're leveraged. So when you put $1 in, the bank gives you $5. You know, that's the thing. So 20% down, you actually get $10. So you put in 2, you get 10, right? You put in 20, you get 100. And you get the increase on the whole 100, not just on your 20. And that's the leveraging effect. So if I got 20 grand in a $100,000 house and that $100,000 house goes up by 5%, that's a $5,000 increase, but I only got 20 in it. 5 on 20 is not 5%, it's 20%, right? Plus they're paying down the loan, plus I'm getting cash flow, and through the depreciation, the cash flow is tax-free. So all of a sudden I got 10 properties, I'm averaging $300 or $400 a door. That's $30,000 to $40,000 a year, completely tax-free. It's not even on my tax. It's tax-free. So I would max out IRAs. I'd put it in my SEP IRA. You know, that's when I started doing the stocks, and I'd put $30,000, $40,000 a year in them. Well, all of a sudden you could do that for 10 years and you have a couple of 33% years, you're at $700,000.
So stocks kind of became more like a hobby for you. Well, I mean, the real estate kind of was too, but the real estate was more of a business where stocks was just like, hey, this is something I enjoy on my free time. And you just started dabbling into it. And then at what point did you get really serious about it though?
I started trading, and like a lot of people, I lost 50, 60, 70 grand. I mean, I tried every stupid, dude. I got books on moon cycles.
No question about it. I am ready to get hurt again.
I mean, this is how down the rabbit hole.
I never heard that before. Moon cycles to stock.
Dude, I've got books where, because once you start losing, you start looking.
Yeah.
And I come across this guy and he's like, look, lunar cycles line up with the S&P 500. And he's showing you, and you're like, holy shit. So I order it. I'm tracking moon cycles. I did one where you take graph paper and you would trace the chart, and then you'd count so many bars over and then go back to, and then flip it upside down, what you just traced. And he projected that was the future.
Wow. So did any of those work for you?
No, none of those work. So as I would go through all of that kind of craziness, I would just start to realize like, wow. And I came across a guy named Stan Weinstein. I teach this thing called the 4 stages of price movement.
Yes.
And Stan had been, is an old guy who'd been teaching this since the 80s. I came across a guy named Dr. Elder. He used a 13-day moving average. I found that I thought the 20-day worked better. So it was a combination of these different people. And one night I just had one of those eureka moments where it kind of all just came together for me. And then I began to, I had to write it down. And so I wrote that book called The Money Flow Trading System. Man, I wrote that years before I ever talked about it on Instagram. I wrote it for me.
Mm-hmm.
And
so it's like
my son. Right.
Okay. All right.
And if you read it, it's not written like a traditional book. It's like at times like a mix, and like I'm just putting shit in there,
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. Huh? That's all you have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yeah, that's what it was, I mean, and I put it on Amazon just out of curiosity one day. And the formatting was all jacked up. I don't know if you've ever tried to upload to Amazon. It's a nightmare.
No, I haven't done that yet.
Oh, their book formatting is so bizarre. So, and I sold a couple, and a guy contacted me, and I was like, wow, that was neat. And I talked to him about trading. And then I started teaching on Instagram about real estate. That's what I figured I was qualified to teach about. And I'm teaching about real estate. Well, I have a free ebook that I would give away. Mm-hmm. And it was actually a bet with my son. I told him, he had a bunch of fun. I said, I could get to 10,000. That ain't that difficult. And he was like, bet you can't. I was like, yeah, I can. I'll just give away my book, man. If you give away something, people find out. So I give it away, and I say, hey, if you liked my book, share one of my posts. That's all I ask for payment. And you know what's funny? Of all the people that do it, maybe 10 out of 100 will share a post. The rest just take it and don't share shit.
Yeah. That happens, unfortunately, but it's a good marketing tactic, though, if you think about it.
Because some did share it. Chris Johnson shared it. That's who put me on.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's how you found me, through Chris.
Yes. Yeah. I saw you guys go live one day, and I was like, who's this guy? There's no way this guy is like in the stock market. Because again, I always say, don't judge a book by its cover, right? Because you wear a t-shirt, a cargo jeans, and you're always doing like working on homes and stuff. And I think your primary residence, or wherever I saw you at that time, it looked very modest. It didn't fit the 2020 version of an investor, a trader. Right. You know what I'm saying?
I think that time I was live with him, I was at one of my rent properties working too, actually.
Yeah. I think yes. That's
probably what it was.
Yeah. And I used to come into your room under my other Instagram, not my Trading with a Dummy. So that's probably why you never saw me until like recently when I actually hit you up. Now,
Chris was one of my first students.
Chris Johnson was?
Mm-hmm. And his business was doing well. He had made some money, and he read my free ebook, which is just, you don't have to die broke. And all it was I talked about debt, be smart with leverage, only borrow on real estate if you can help it, just common sense stuff. My philosophy of life, how I became millionaire, being a blue collar guy. And then chapter 10 is the dogs of the Dow, which is a very old strategy for investing in dividend stocks. Mm-hmm. And I've done it as one of the first strategies I ever learned. I've been doing it ever since. It's not perfect, but it works really well. And you'll never get hurt doing it. You're just buying the 10 highest yielding Dow stocks at the beginning of the year. And what happens is the reason they're the highest yielding, that is because when the stock price goes down, the yield goes up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're buying the worst performers of last year, which tend to be the best performers. Yeah, over a period of time.
Yeah.
And then you rebalance the portfolio and add the new ones, and you just keep rolling that forward. And I was, and I put that out, and then Chris, he was like, well, how do you know when, if you want to buy them throughout the year, how are you buying? And I go, well, I have another book to show you what I'm doing. And I showed it to him, and then he loved it and started doing it. And he was like, man, I'm really growing my portfolio here. So then I'm like, shit, I need to start talking about this other book, Never occurred to me that people would want my advice on how I'm targeting what I call stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. Honestly, I just didn't see myself as like a stock guru.
Yeah. And so this actually started off with a challenge with your son.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But before that, like, when did you decide I want to start, I guess not mentoring or having students? At what point did you decide, hey, I want to start teaching this and creating groups and having a fee and selling things? When did that start?
Honestly, that started because people asked me. I put the book out. I figured maybe I'd point people to Amazon. I'd make a few bucks. I'd post on Instagram, and it would be, maybe that could turn into a book or something. And people would start hitting me up. Hey, do you have a course on houses and stuff? I'd be like, no, not really, man. Oh, you should get one. And then I put the stock thing out there, but still mostly talking about real estate. And then all of a sudden, stocks just got super popular. Like, it seemed like everyone was wanting to trade stocks.
That was in 2020 though, right?
Right. Even before, I was starting to see a lot of interest. And people would go, hey, my buddy said, you know a lot about stocks. I'd get these DMs and I'd go, well, yeah, I've got this book. And then honestly, Chris put that book out, and he put a course out from, some of it was from my stuff, and he put it out and he referenced me and said, hey, I learned this from this guy. And I wake up one day and I had gained like 10,000 followers overnight or something.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa, and I'm getting all these DMs, and I'm like, well, here's that. And I was like, well, shit, I need to reformat this book so it's a little more digestible, and I need to get it easily, look, they need to buy it from me. Hell with Amazon. Right. So then I started going down that path, and then it just kind of evolved. I'd started podcasting a little prior to that, and I had that going. So right now I do 2 podcasts. One is on mindset. One's on stocks. I put out the petersreport.com, which is my free newsletters, no cost. I have my free ebook. I have the money flow book, and then 2 trading courses. And all that is just evolved from people asking me, could you mentor me? Or what do I do with this? And I'm like, nah, I don't want to do that. But let me create something. There's obviously a demand,
Yes, it's the wrong time.
Started doing the course. I will say this. Now, I'm not sure how familiar you are with my content. I do these things where I go from trading group and I review them, and then I will my personal opinion. Last year is when I started my YouTube channel, and I opted not to review the ones that I didn't care for, because there are some that are out there, and you can clearly see it. It's all about clout and making as much money off of people as possible.
Sure.
I went through your stuff. What made you decide to charge such a low price, to be honest? Like, you don't charge an arm and a leg like some people I've seen for your material.
I think one is I'm rich.
It's funny you say that, because like all the other ones, everyone else says I'm rich too, but I'm gonna charge you $5,000. Right.
I can't, dude. I guess I always feel like I'm talking to me when I was 22, 23, and the guy that showed me everything didn't charge me anything.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, he invited me to his house. Like, he would pay for the vacations after that, and so there's a little bit of that. And, obviously I like to make money like anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And I got, as I went about doing it, I said, well, if I could sell 3-4 books a day, I do videos, I do my podcast, I do YouTube, and I sell 3-4 books a day. My profit margin on those is $50 to $60.
Mm-hmm.
So if I sold 3-4 a day and I just pushed that into the stock market, that would just be gravy, That was how I would look at it. Like I wasn't trying to make money off of, I wasn't trying to get rich trying to sell books or courses. That wasn't my intent. But also it takes a lot of time to put out, to do a YouTube video.
It takes a lot, especially if you do everything yourself. The editing and stuff like that, it can take up a lot of time, hours on end. And that's why I don't knock it. I don't knock anyone who has courses or put stuff together. I knock it when it's clearly just a money grab. And I look through the course. I'm like, this is like really basic information and you didn't put much effort into it. And you're charging naive people who, again, are excited about the come up, right? It's like, let me make as much money as I can really quick. Cause a lot of us, especially like in a minority community, a lot of us weren't exposed to investing and stuff like that. And people seeing a quick way to get rich. I was exposed to this whole thing initially through EYL. So you quickly just learn the purpose of what people are trying to do. And I just think it's really awesome. I just want to honestly just tell you, it's awesome that you're not charging an arm and a leg for the content because you have a lot of content out there. Personally, I don't even know how you can flip homes, trade, be on IG, do a podcast, write books, and have a group because it's a trading group, right? It's on, is it Discord or?
We're in Discord. And then anytime I make a move with my stuff, they get a text message.
Correct. So you stay pretty busy. So when you actually, I guess, explain to me how your day, a typical day in your life works.
I work every day. So that's part of it. It's a little unfair in the sense that like my hobby is the stock market.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Like what I like to do for fun is stocks. And I find real estate very fun. And so if you were just to say, okay, hey, G, you're off for the next 2 days. What do you want to do? I'd be like, let's go look at houses. Like, so I'm doing it, so it's a little of a, I don't want to say it's an unfair advantage, but if you really like to do it, then the work part is just, it's you don't really think about it as a lot of work, like I like talking on the camera. I like doing videos. There's times where it's mundane. It's dragging, I don't see myself as a content creator as more as just a documenter of what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And at times I've come to realize I'm probably never going to have 1 million followers like Valuetainment, like my man over there. What's his name from Valuetainment?
Oh yes. I love that guy. I forgot his name,
Patrick
the guy
David,
from yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Now he's a badass. I don't know that I could ever do that, and I've contemplated this. I've contemplated hiring a young dude to come in and we'll set up an office and we're going to broadcast every day at the same time. We're going to go live. Mm-hmm. And I've thought all this through and I'm like, it's not really why I started doing this, so I don't know that I'd be happy doing that because that starts to sound a lot like a job.
Yeah. And you chose not to change either. Just the way you present yourself either. And like, you pretty much stay true to yourself going back from all, like everything I've seen from you, you stayed very consistent with your stuff.
And I tell my wife all the time, one day they're going to stop listening. Like,
what makes you think that?
I don't know. It seems fickle. I've seen this already since the COVID sell-off. Whenever, we've had 2 severe stock market crashes, I guess you'd say, since I've been leading a group. The COVID, my group had been going for 4 or 5 months before the COVID crash started.
Oh, okay.
And I'm in there. Don't worry about this. I've seen this a million times. We had swine flu and we had this. Don't worry about it. Dow's down 3,000. And I'm staring at the screen. And they were like, we're getting short. And I'm like, no. It's going to bounce. No. Down 3,000, And I'd never seen anything like it. It was worse than 2008. That COVID crash was the fastest down market I'd ever seen in 20 years of being in the stock market. And I was in shock, and I had like 100 and something. I didn't have a lot of people, a little over 100 in my group, and I'm down to like 20. Like they just quit.
They dipped. Yeah. They're like, screw this.
Quit.
Yeah.
We're buying the bottom. I buy Uber at $14 or something, ride it back to 60. Because no matter what the market's going to do tomorrow, I'm going to get up and do what I was doing yesterday. Like quitting's not an option. Not participating is not an option. And that's kind of what helped me become, a wealthy guy. Is I just get up every day and try to get a little richer. And nothing I do is hard or complicated. Nothing is, sophisticated. There's no jets. There's no assistants. It's just I get up, I try to update my newsletter, post some videos, do a podcast, check my trades, go work on a house. Like it's just the same thing, over and over. And, if the stock market crashes the next day, I'm like, hey, we're waiting on our stage ones. I mean, nothing changes for me. And I know it does for other people because I remember the 2003 crash. I just got in the market and I'm like, the hell with stocks. And then I remember 2008 and my account dropping that much. And I remember how shocking that is to a person. But now it's like after you've had that happen a bunch of times, it's kind of like being a boxer. You just kind of expect to get punched. I mean, like you.
Absolutely. It's kind of sad seeing what you're saying, that when COVID happened, that you lost so many followers.
Oh, it's happening now because of the growth sell-off. People are just
correct. And I was going to touch on that because I'm sure like once that drop off happened for you, right? Then there was probably a significant increase, because that's when I noticed everyone was like, the stock markets, everything's going up. It didn't matter what you bought, honestly, right after COVID, it was going up. It was going up. And then, it was last year's Q1 was my very first experience of a sell-off, right? And it freaked me out. I lost my walkaway money. It is what it is. I over-leveraged. No big deal. But I noticed that even my friends started falling off, right? I had my own little group of friends. We were all doing this, last one standing. And I do notice that it stops becoming cool now because it's more difficult, right? And I've also heard that if you came into the market, let's say like in a .com era, right? Or the housing crash, and you have money invested, you automatically think the stock market is a scam. But everyone else who came in 2020, right after COVID, they're like, it's the greatest thing ever. Everything's going to go up. So you have to try to find that balance, right? And naturally, if you came into the .com bubble, you're bearish. If you came in 2020 after COVID, you're bullish, and you kind of stay with that bias. Unfortunately,
you know what I call that on my son. I do this thing every Sunday service, I call it. And I grew up Baptist, so I kind of take it from the Baptist church, and because it is my religion, I'm trying to overemphasize that it's not optional. We're not opting out of it because we don't feel good about it. Like it's what we are. We're Muslim, we're Baptist. That is what you are, right? And I am a stock trader, stock investor. And I call it when you got on the train. And, over time, if you pull up any chart, the Dow all the way to the S&P, they go like this. And it just keeps on going. And then there's a .com crash, and then it comes back, and then there's this crash, and then and that's been going on since 18 whatever. And it just keeps going up. And so I always say that 70% of the time stocks go up, but 30% of the time they go really fast down, and they're just doing this. And what I learned through all of that is every time Netflix fell 50, 60% was one of the great opportunities of my life. And yet there was someone that bought it maybe a week before the crash. And then it fell 60%. He's like, this stock thing sucks. And there was a guy 3 weeks later that came in and bought Netflix down here. And he's like, this stock thing is great. And we're both buying and selling the same thing. Guy has a foreclosure. You buy the same property and it's an opportunity. But yet we're both buying the same thing. And isn't that all mindset?
Yes, it definitely is all mindset. Oh, but what do you think is the reason why a lot of these people have dropped off? You just think that they just don't have the heart for it? It's really not what they want to do. They thought maybe it was just a quick way to make money, and then they found out it's not.
Right. Yeah. It turned into work.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm surrounded. I have friends normal guys that are just normal guys, right? They're not into the make money thing. And I would buy a property, and the first few, they would help me for pizza and beer. Oh, come help me. Yeah. They're painting. They're on house 4. It's like, man, like you're doing this all the time. This sucks. They don't want to do that anymore. And then I buy 7 and 8, 9. And then around 12 or 13, they're telling me how lucky I got in real estate. I'm like, lucky? What are you talking about, bro? I've been 9, 10 years doing this every day, man, on weekends while you were off fishing, while you and the wife were in Italy on vacation. Remember what I was doing? And, and I would explain that. Well, I just kept doing it every day. And that's been just the mundane of the repetition of every day. You know, I check my charts, and you're always going to get some stock that runs, that breaks ranks with everyone else. And when it would hit my, what I call stage 3, I would trim that, take that money and put it on one of my stage 1s. Plus I'm adding new money all the time, buying on stage 1s. And if you just stay at that, you're going to have money at the end, you know, as you get older. I mean,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't, there's a feeling addiction that comes with stock market, like gambling.
It is 100%. 100%.
Right.
You have the ups and downs when it comes with it. And it's just kind of how long you're willing to hang on for that ride.
And here's what's
honest.
weird though. And I've found this correlation, and I'm always using my rich friend, poor friend, because I literally have that in my life, the rich and the poor friend. I only hear from my poor friend about GameStop, Dogecoin, Shiba. Never fails. He'll call me and go, "Hey man, have you heard of and it'll be some crazy coin I've never heard of." And I'm like, "No, I've never heard of it." He goes, "It's up like 10,000%, man. You think we should buy that?" No. And I always say the same thing to him. No, everything he ever asks me, no, don't do that. You should buy. And I give him, you know, and then I have a rich friend, one that works on Wall Street. He's a he's a killer. And one that's my friend that showed me all the real estate. That guy collects like 20 something thousand a month in dividends. So that tells you how much money he has. He has a lot of money in the stock market. He sold, remember, REIT, purchased all his properties. He put it all in stocks. Now he sits around watching the stock market. I don't hear from him. The only time I ever hear from him is when the stock market's getting killed. And when it's having donkey punch, he's like, "Hey, G, what are you buying?" That's his question. He's not scared.
He sees it as a discount.
And my followers are quitting. And he's calling to see what I'm buying. He doesn't pay me. So that's weird to me. So my poor friends are leaving and my rich friends are asking what we're buying. And that seeing that over the years play out has really decided, okay, I got to stay in this camp, man. I got to control my emotions. And if the richest guy I know is like, "Hey, what are we buying?" That's the camp I need to be in, you know?
There is no nobility in poverty. I have been a rich man and I have been a poor man, and I choose rich every fucking time.
Definitely. And I think in this space too, the biggest thing, especially the challenge for myself, for example, is the psychological aspect of things, the mindset, the emotional aspect, right? Like I get pissed about Square. I don't know if you invest in Square or not.
Oh yeah, I'm in it.
I bought it initially years ago. It was like one of the first things I bought for $20. I sold it at 120 during 2020. And then it went up to like almost $300. And then it came down to 190. That's when I re-entered. I bought more at 170. And 150.
What's it at now, like 80 or 90?
No, it's like 90 something. I stopped buying at 130. I was like, "Yeah, fuck this stock. I'm sick and tired of Square," but I didn't sell, and I'm not going to sell. And I have my buddies always like, "Hey, dude, should we sell?" I'm like, "No, dude. Square is still a legitimate company. It's going to be okay. Right. It's just, it sucks right now, but don't sell for a loss." Now, when it comes to some other things, like let's say like Matterport, for example, I bought at $14. And I told myself, if it drops below 13, I'm selling. And luckily I did, because I think it's like $7 now, $8. So some growth stocks, I will definitely take an L real quick. But the ones that are more established, I don't. And it is a mindset because it is emotional. It's like you look at your account, and like you said, you went from overnight from 70,000 to 30,000. It takes a lot to be able to stomach that, right? But if you look at the you in the future, you'll be a lot happier knowing that you held it. It's the same thing like we were talking about real estate earlier. I wish I had held on to my very first property that I bought, or at least rented it out. It was $172,000. That's nothing now, if we think about it in the grand scheme of things. And this house is selling for $500,000. So it's crazy. It's definitely 100% a mindset. I think all the technicals, the fundamentals, that's 30% of the game. 70% is mindset. What's your thoughts?
Right, for sure. And then this idea I talk a lot about, you got to have your buckets right. And it's like, I used to have this debate with kids. Should I pay my student loan off or should I invest? And this is when Square and them are flying. And I'm like, listen, pay your student loan off, get debt free, and invest with surplus money. That'll help you emotionally handle the ups and downs. Because if you don't have any debt, you don't need to sell for a loss. But if you
Makes
have a
it
lot
easier.
of debt and you have all this shit going on at home and you're watching the stock market collapse, you're thinking, damn, I could have paid off my debt. Like now you're having all these weird thoughts, man. Now, none of them ever listen to me because they're smart. And they whenever you're 30, you really think you got everything figured out. I know I did, right? It's just the way life is. You're 30, you're smart. You get to be 40, you realize you don't know that much.
Yeah.
But so I try to get them like, best investment is in you. Like get yourself debt free, get your home situation right. Like your first real estate investment should be in your own house. Like, right. These are just basic things to me that if you get all that stable, then you're going to be a lot better coming into the stock market. And then I try to get them to separate their trading from investing. So I have a trading account. That's my big cash account.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll move money in and out of there. And then I have a margin account that's much smaller, but I do have access to margin and options, but that is my smallest account. And then I have my dividend stocks. Those are never discussed. Like those, I mean, they're discussed, but those are never, there's not even a conversation about selling those. Like,
Yeah.
the ones in that are to pay you dividends for, you're going to die with these. So I try to get them to see it. Now, if we need liquidity, yeah, let's go to our trading account. Or if we have a big score, let's go to our trading account. I periodically, as I'm trading, if it builds up, I pull money out and buy a house. I just got lucky. I pulled 60,000 out of my trading account to be able to pay cash for the beach house that I bought like 7 months ago. Right now, that looks pretty damn smart. I mean,
Yeah.
but my trading account was at about 180, 170. So I pulled 60 out of it. I just went down the list, equally hit each stock. Got lucky on that. But I think periodically you need to do that, man. Because black swan events, I mean, anything can happen. And, taking from one asset, and I've also sold a house or pulled money out of real estate to put money into stocks. So,
So right now in this very moment and how the climate is with everything selling off, with real estate just skyrocketing left and right, if there's a person that's brand new that you can reach out to, like right now, you do both real estate and obviously the stock market, which one would you recommend they check out or I guess invest their time into?
First I would do exactly what I said. I'd start with themselves and see, if you got 15, 16% credit card debt, that's like, come on, we got to get rid of that. That's a no brainer, right? Like we got to start there. Because if you're not starting there, you have a weird value going on for money. I mean, it's silly to me to buy AT&T to get a 50-cent dividend and be paying Visa fucking hundreds of dollars a month. I mean, that doesn't make any sense, So we got to get our mind around that trade. I think stocks is easiest for most people. I mean, and it is obviously you just click a button. I mean, and unfortunately it's that easy too, part of it. And I would start with not trading as much as, even though that's how I make money, is teaching trading. I would start with my buy and hold stocks, the dividend
Investing
stocks.
first. Yeah.
Right.
That's what I always recommend.
If you're a strong investor, it makes trading easier, man. Like I have this, 30, 40 stocks in my buy and hold. I've watched those stocks every day. Some of them I've held for 15 years. So when Pepsi sets up, man, I can see that swing trade. I've been watching this stock. I've owned it for so long that it makes trading around it easy, or at least comfortable. Let's call it that.
Yeah. I think you start off with the investing and trading with a little bit less money than what you could do at real estate right now, especially with the housing market the way it is. Everything is just like, it seems like you have to go in now with cash. Right. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, you're in that space. I'm not, but it seems like, and again, I live in Florida, and Orlando is like one of the fastest growing states now since COVID. But it seems like it's a lot harder to buy real estate right now at this very moment. And if you have 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, you might be better off buying during the dip or when you see clear reversal. What I also notice about you is that you seem to be a swing trader, not necessarily a futures trader or options or anything like that, correct? You're predominantly a swing trader, correct?
Right. Swing, and then what I call position trading.
Okay.
So like I hold a position in Square. It's not what I call a buy and hold, because if it got to the right price, I would get rid of it. And like Uber's one, I'm going to sell most of my Uber at $60. I don't know how long it's going to take to get there. That's what I think the company's worth. And so I'll buy stage ones. If it runs up and goes too far, we use our trading skills, with indicators. I might trim it back, but I'm going to stay with this position until we get to what I believe is true value. Now, the only problem with that style of trading, what I call position trading, is you ride positions down, and that's hard for people to handle.
Yeah, because it's not a guaranteed income every single day or on a weekly basis. It's more like you probably now you may get paid out in 3, 6, 1 year time frame. So it just kind of depends. And
if you're going to swing trade, I mean, you've made a couple good points there. Like, you need to get real clear what you're doing. And I see people, they're kind of quasi swing trading, sort of position trading, and kind of doing it, and it's a buy and hold. It's like, no, man, what are you doing here? You need to know exactly. So if you're swing trading, like you said, that one stock, you had a point. If it hit it, I'm out. And then you just take it. Like, that's the game. So if you're wanting a short-term trade, you got to be cool with losing.
Yes, because that's the reality of things, right? I think, unfortunately, part of the situation in this space is that every single trader is a 100% win rate. That's what they always see. They always try to show.
And win rate is crazy. I try telling, because kids will ask me, what's your win rate? I'm saying, what does that matter? And they're like, well, you need a high win rate. I'm like, all right, what if my win rate is 90%, but on the 10%, I lose everything?
That's interesting.
Right. So you could have a trade system that has a 10% win rate, but if it wins $1 billion, it don't matter. Right. So that's a guru trick. 97% win rate, and it's like, okay, what does that mean? I don't even know what that means. The other guru trick that some of my friends do, they're probably watching this video. You guys need to stop doing it. They'll be like, I made $118,000 with DraftKings or whatever. Just pick a stock, Ethereum or whatever. I made $285,000. Kind of leaving you to imply that if I bought your course, I would have made that. Except I don't have $1 million to put into it.
Yeah, your risk tolerance is probably way different than a person that only has 1,000. Absolutely.
Right. So he would have made the 8% that you made, which was your 100,000, because you left off the fact that you put $1 million in there.
Which is very risky.
Right. And you're like, well, look, I made $100,000 in 3 days. I'm like, yeah, but it was $1 million position. Like, I can't do that. So I would have made $10. Like, again, law of large numbers tends to trick people.
Yeah, because the lack of transparency, I think it's the issue that I really honestly have within this space.
Me too. That's why my courses are cheap. I want them to be cheap. I teach literally, anything I teach, you could find free.
Yes, thank you.
I have no secret. I have no secret.
Say that again, please, so people can hear that.
Right. Everything I teach, you can find for free. What I'm going to save you is like hundreds of hours doing it. That's it. All I'm going to do is show you the 400 books on trading that I read, what I think is the most important things. And this is what I personally do. And I don't think that's worth $5,000 to someone. I mean, maybe, but, I've had, my house is filled with gifts. And I don't mean
it was the very first video I think I saw of yours.
I don't mean trinkets either, dude. I'm talking about people sending me brand new gifts and guitars, bobblehead statues of me, all kinds of cool shit. And the reason they do that is I changed their life financially. Now, it wasn't any proprietary information. It was just the way that I said it to them clicked. And they needed to hear it. And they heard it. And they had heard it before, but it was a way that I said it. And it may have been in a tirade, because I tend to do these tirades where I curse and knock over my board. And, I get mad at my audience. I don't know if you've ever caught in my class. Sometimes during it, I get mad and just turn it off.
I have not seen you get mad at anyone. So
I haven't seen that yet. For asking questions, I'll just start yelling at them. This is why you're all broke. But a lot of people find that humorous, kind of like Dan Pena does, where he gets all mad, starts calling, I've had to tone that down as I've gotten more and more followers, because people report you.
Oh, really? You've been having that issue?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, if like, well, like I use the word idiot, or I use, moron, or like whatever, and they're like, well, that's not a socially acceptable word. I'm like,
Oh
really?
my God. Grow up,
Right.
man. Y'all need to have
Yeah.
some more thicker skin. And that's the
Dude,
problem. That's probably why people fall off.
right. I got blocked once from going live on Instagram. There was an article in Fortune magazine, and it was this lady asking for advice on how to deal with her husband. He was addicted to trading. And I was like, oh, that's funny. So I read this article, right? And he was trying to talk his wife into, they pay all their bills with her money. They use all of his money from work just for trading. And she's like, no. You need to pay some of the mortgage, right? And which is a reasonable thing to ask of your husband, right?
Yes.
To be funny, I did a silly, an upside down emoji, which means obviously I'm being silly. That's what that emoji means. And I said, why are women so greedy? To me, that's funny. And I even had women in my trading group goes, right, I'd love to have that deal. And I got blocked from going live for hate speech.
Yeah, man. It's
That's crazy, right?
It is. It's very crazy how sensitive just social media has gotten, or just this environment, the culture in general has got. It's shifted. You come from an old school era. I come from somewhat of an old school era. I had this conversation with my friend, and I know this is like kind of off topic with stock market and real estate, but I told him it's my generation that has made this pussy society is the best way that I basically explained it. And it's true. If you think about it, who are the people who are in charge now? They're around my age bracket. They're the ones who are screaming about, racism, sexuality, all these different things. And you can't say anything anymore without offending somebody. A pure example is, do you know who Mark Monroe is?
Yes.
Okay. So he's one of my buddies. I interviewed him. It was the last interview that dropped. Some people were offended on my style of how I interviewed him with the memes. Yeah. And I'm like, you guys don't even know this guy.
I know him. So
yeah. It's like, and he was perfectly fine with it. He thought it was funny, but everyone else got super offended by it. And I'm like, you put the memes in an inappropriate time when he was talking about serious topic. Is like, obviously you're not familiar with my content. It's like, that's just what I do. I try to be lighthearted and stuff. Even if you watch this video, you may see some memes in there. Now I have to ask this before I let you go. Is I told myself I'm going to ask every single person that I bring on this show, especially if they have like a trading group or whatever. Do you make more money off of the subscription services and things that you sell than trading yourself? Or do you make more money trading yourself than you do off of those?
This year, with the way the market's acted, I've made more money selling books. and last year, that wasn't the case. So if the market's friendly to my strategy, I'm going to make, because I have almost $1 million in the market. So, I make a little over 20,000 just collecting dividends.
Okay.
My
Awesome.
group's not that large. Our group is under 500 members. And then
That's
it's
still
also
pretty large.
You can't just join it either. So let's say you hit me up and say, hey, I want to get in your group. I'll probably respond with something that okay. Like I don't say anything else.
Okay, you idiot.
Right. Part of it is I'm filtering people because I don't want a bunch of people in there I got to spoon feed. And they have to have bought my book. They have to then apply. They got to fill out a little thing, tell me about themselves, how much they're trading, their experience. And, it may not be for them. There's people I talk out of it. I'm like, nah, I don't think this is for you, man. And what I don't want is day traders. I don't want any day traders in my group.
That's not really your thing. Yeah, it's not really your thing.
It's not my thing. And you know what? They still join. It drives me crazy. They'll join and then start talking. Literally, it says right in the thing. And I tell them, we do not discuss day trading. We're not talking day trading. They join 2 days later. They're in there talking day trading. And then they're like, why are you such a dick kicking me out? Because it said. But yeah, I don't want that because I think it causes, I'm not against day traders. I just put a video of me interviewing the day trade professor.
Yes. Yeah, I saw that.
That's his thing. Go join him. Like, he's a day trader. Don't join me. It just, all you're doing is messing up the system, you know? But that aside, I make way more money doing real estate than I've done doing that.
Yeah.
Okay. I've done well. I've sold, I'm not gonna lie. I don't ever talk about the numbers. I've sold a lot of books, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in books.
Off of Amazon mostly, or off of your LinkedIn? Link
A little of all
link
three.
tree.
99%. I don't want to say no. I don't know that. I don't know these numbers to be fact. Not a lot off Amazon. There is a trickle because people see you. They just go look on Amazon, order it, never speak to you, which is cool, I guess. Which is funny. Then they'll find out that the newer version is with me and they want me to send them that. I'm like, you didn't order from me. Call Amazon. Like, why would I? And then their prices are different. I'm like, yeah, well, it's just a pain in the ass. But I've done well selling just books, just ebooks and books, and which is cool. I think that's cool because there's nothing else to sell. Like, you buy the book, you got it, right?
Yeah.
And to me, there's a lot of I feel good about it because I didn't ask anybody for a lot of money. I didn't ask them for $10,000. I simply sold them a book, and I know the book is solid. I know it's worth more than I charge for it because I get told that all the time. And then to get into my group, they got to go from the book on their own. I don't even market it. You know, every once in a while I will. I try to do the Gary Vee thing: jab, 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 right hook.
Yeah, I love Gary Vee.
Yeah, man. Gary's the man,
awesome.
man. That's what I've modeled most of what I do after Gary's way he does things.
Yeah, because he comes across very, very authentic as well. And so do you. You come I don't know you personally on a personal level. I'm getting to know you as everyone else is getting to know you here on my channel. But like I said, I've been following you. You seem very authentic. You didn't seem like someone who, I don't get that scammy vibe off of you, I guess is the best way to describe it.
My funnel's horrible. So if you were like a person that helps gurus, you'd be like, bro, you got to fix this and move this here. Your credit card thing's jacked up, and it's a mess, you know? And if I was really concerned, I think with making the most money, I would clean that up a lot. And then I would start instituting massive amounts of follow-ups. And I think here's a couple keys to look for. When, not everyone, but these are key words to look for. You said win rate. That always tells me scam. The only people that sit around, I don't know, I shouldn't say the only people overly concerned with that are people trying to sell you something.
Okay.
Because if you're making a lot of money, you don't sit around adding up your last 100 trades to see what your percentage of win rate is. You don't give a shit.
Yeah. Well, I would say this. How about this? With the win rate, I never thought about it in the perspective that you had mentioned. But I guess the win rate kind of helps to show people maybe that I'm consistent, right? Because consistency is key, right? Because if you, again, I could, my win rate's fucking terrible. But tomorrow I could maybe bet on Tesla dropping down to $500 and it drops down to $500 and now I'm a millionaire, right?
Right.
So I guess that maybe that's the reason why people push the whole win rate a lot. They want to know like consistency. Maybe that's the reason why.
Could be. I just see I see it manipulated a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, mentorship. I got friends that I know are honest guys. They're legit dudes and they mentor.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then there's a lot of scammers that do that. So
yes,
be careful when they start talking mentoring, but there's good dudes that do that. But those are things to look out for. Anytime there's a time ticker, if you don't order in a certain amount of time, just assume what they're selling is bullshit.
And then once it hits zero, it just restarts all over again.
Right. Like, and if they're starting off to you with a lie, you know, that's usually a good sign that this is not legit. ClickFunnels. If it's a ClickFunnels product, it's probably trying to talk you out of money.
Yeah. And since you're in that space and you are kind of well known, you hang out with a lot of financial experts or gurus or whatever. And I'm assuming even on your end, it's kind of hard for you probably to, see who's real and who's not. And I can see it also possibly being a problem if you maybe meet with somebody who you think is a legit good guy. And then later on you find out like, oh, this guy's a scammer. Now I'm associated with him. Because that kind of what ended up happening to me. I was kind of in all these different groups. I got along with everyone. And then once I started my own channel, started getting DMs from people, I quickly realized that some of the people I was associating with are kind of on the lines of scamming, and I had to distance myself from them.
And
so.
I think it's a good idea just to kind of assume everyone is.
Okay.
That's kind of my strategy until I meet you. That doesn't mean I won't talk to you.
Yeah.
I just assume they have ulterior motives until I get to meet them in person. And I don't know if you saw that video where the professor came to my house.
Yes. I saw that.
I've met a lot of influencers. Like if I like them, we hit it off and we're to similar thing, I will go to them or them come to me. And I need that to see if I can trust this guy. I need to feel like that. There's a kid, Ashton, he's a trader. He runs a group. We started getting close and I'm like, I have to go meet this kid to continue this conversation. Because I want to meet his wife when he's not around. You know what I mean? Like I want to see his home. I want to see, because that'll tell you a lot, right? Like that tells you a lot about a person, man. How does he talk to his wife? How does he talk to, when you're out at a restaurant and he goes to talk to the waiter? How's he talking to the waiter?
It shows character.
Character. And the only way to get that is to, and I'm convinced that most of the things you need to be rich are intangible and they can't be bought in a course. Work ethic. I mean, you can read about it, but you can't buy that. You can read about discipline and consistency. You can read about it, but you have to do it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And just as I was coming on here, there's a lady, I inspired her to buy a house, blah, blah, blah. She's got her money ready and she wanted to buy one, that she doesn't have to work on. And I'm like, no, man, buy the one that you got to work on. Think how much you're going to learn. Like,
yeah.
How much more would you learn if you bought just the worst house? Like everything's fucked up and you fixed all of it. Now you know how to fix everything. But people don't see that journey. They see, I need this house. It needs to be a great deal. And I need to flip it and make all this money. And then it's like, no. Maybe you need a shithole that teaches you a life lesson. I don't know. But that's been my journey, man. It's never easy and it's never, it's always hard work, man. I'm always at risk and it's never comfortable and I never have enough money. Every day I wake up, I'm broke.
Yeah. Do you also feel that that's what also gets you to continue to move forward? Because when you feel like you're pushing against the wall is really where you probably work the best, right? When you're not pushing against the wall is when things get a little too comfortable and then you may start slacking.
For sure. And you don't need to know everything. Like there's a lot of things I don't know. I just don't know that. You can only put so much in your brain. So like a lot of people, I call this squirrel. A straight line is my strategy to a lot of things. Straight line. You may have heard me say this, straight line. And I got that from the Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort. Jordan Belfort used to have a sales course long before he was famous on YouTube. And I bought it because I'm like, well, he's obviously the king salesman of the world. I mean, right? That dude knows stuff about selling, right?
He does.
Yeah, he would bring in complete guys that knew nothing about stocks off the street to a room and teach them how to sell on the phone. And he had this thing called straight line. And that was it. And I was like, I like that, straight line. And so kids come in my trading group, we're trading, we're doing the swing trading thing, NFTs. And it's like, I thought we were swing trading. Yeah, we need to look at this NFT. And I'm like, but that just came out last week. Like, what about the swing trading? And now their money's going to NFT. And they're like, oh, but you got to stay on. We're going to change every week. I thought we were swing trading. You haven't mastered that. Now you're trying to figure out guerrilla art. Like, I mean,
that could potentially be a scam.
Right. Before that, it was crypto coin. I mean, what are we doing, man? Like every time I turn around, they're doing something new. I don't know how you can master swing trading and master NFTs. I don't know how you can do that because it takes a lot of time and effort to master one thing. The analogy I try to use, if let's say you want to be a piano player, nobody goes, I want to be a great piano player, trumpet player, bass player, saxophone player, and I want to play lead guitar. Now, you may have one guy that can do that. They're rare. Most people pick one. And then maybe when you're a good piano player, you start playing around with and you can learn the guitar faster because now you know the piano, you know the basics of music. I just see people move too fast, and all these, like you said, these gurus that haven't been trading for a couple of years, there's no way I'd listen to them.
Yeah. It's just unfortunate. We're in a society where it's fast. Influencers, you see it on IG, everyone's flossing. Everyone's showing off. Hey, if you buy my course, you can take $1,000 and turn into six figures in a month, and you could live this lifestyle. And a lot of stuff is fake. You know, if you look a little bit deeper, you find out that they rented this car. You find out that they don't even own the house. You find out a lot of stuff, and it's very unfortunate. The truth is, like you said, it takes work. It's hard work. It requires blood, sweat. You're going to lose some money. But in the end of the day, if you end up working hard enough and you learn and you apply yourself, eventually you will get that money back plus more. That's my opinion.
Right. And try to avoid anything where they do a lot of it for you.
Yes.
Those are
yes,
always scams.
Yeah. It's sometimes I wouldn't say it was even scams. It's like some of the trading groups, and I made a video on this. You cannot, it's great for you to be in a trading group, right? And then you get these calls and you follow that person. But what happens if that person disappears? Are you able to replicate that? Like, are you learning stuff from that group? If you're just in there for call outs, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. Yeah, it may be cool for a while, but you need to be able to fish yourself.
Right. And that's what I try to bring to mind. Yes, I tell them the moves I'm making, but I'm trying to do it so that I'm instructing you in real time from my book. And I trade the same stock. So you're not going to get any magic ticker symbol. Like, I'm not going to come up with a stock nobody's heard of and it can go up 1,000%. It's not going to be that. It's going to be Uber's on a stage one. It's now a buy. You already knew about that stock. Like, I didn't give you any secret stock. And I don't believe in that. There are people that are talented. Every once in a while you get lucky and you catch one and it runs, but that's not something you can do over your entire lifetime. That's, you got lucky once and it ran up and you made a bunch of money. That's what I don't like about the whole NFT space. Is not that I'm old and don't understand NFTs. I totally understand it. I'm really into Bitcoin. I totally get it. What I dislike about the whole space is the squirrel effect of taking all these young minds and now they're running over there and they're just chasing money. They don't give a shit about art or great apes or any of that stuff. They're just chasing money, man. And that always ends bad.
Yeah. And then once you get the money, you also realize that it doesn't even really matter.
Yeah. And maybe you get lucky and one of them runs up. Okay. So what are you going to do with the money? And I tell you one more thing. I always want to get this off my, I get asked this a lot and you'll get asked this. What should I do with $10,000? And I'm always like, and honestly, a lot of times I reply back, that's a stupid question. And they're like, what do you mean?
You're meaner than me.
Right. I thought you were like I said, no, it's a dumb question. Because I don't think like that. If you're thinking like a one-time transaction, what do I do with this one-time money? You should have already had that 10,000 invested, dude. You're late.
I don't understand anything, man. Leave your stupid comments in your pocket.
Like, what were you doing with it yesterday? So, and my response is do what I did yesterday. Meaning, if you gave me $1 million tomorrow, guess what I'm going to do? Nothing different. I'm going to wake up, I'm going to look for properties and see, is there any dividend stocks on a stage one that I could put some money into? And I'm not putting the whole $1 million into one stock. Or
scale in or whatever.
I'm scaling. I'm always scaling in, right? And I'm always saving some for a property, and then I'm always acquiring a property, and then it takes me months to get it up and going. In the meantime, I'm buying 2 shares of Uber and one of this. Like it's an ongoing thing. It's never a singular transaction, and that's what I'm trying to get them to see, that it's a transaction of life. It's not a one-time thing. What do I do with $100,000? I went off on a guy once. He said he had $250,000 saved, and everybody's expecting you to be like, oh, that's amazing. I'm like, that is really fucking ridiculously stupid.
Oh my God.
How did you come up with how in the world could you possibly have that in your checking account? Like, I bought $3 million in real estate with $250,000. Like, sitting on $250,000 is hard. That means you're the worst investor on planet Earth.
Because you're just sitting there doing nothing for you.
Where everybody's thinking I'm gonna pat him on the back and tell him how. Now, for him, I'm picking on him, but I'm using him as an illustration to other people. Just stacking money to stack money
I've changed my mindset on that in 2020. Like me and my wife, like barely have anything in savings. Everything's in the market or invested in something else. Like I don't when you look at my account, I'm poor. Right. But my investments, I'm trying to build something for my kids, because I didn't grow up that way. My parents didn't even save money. Like my dad retired recently. I saw his retirement check, and I'd say it's pretty sad. I don't want to put his business out there, but it's way less than $100,000 for a man who worked 30 years.
Right.
And
a couple fourplexes probably would be more.
Yep, correct. And I
that's
always tell
two
people,
transactions. I mean,
yep. I always tell people, if you have money in savings, why not put it in a market? And typically the response is, well, the market can crash.
And that is so stupid. You need it to crash.
Very blessed.
It's again, they're seeing it as a singular transaction. Good, crash it. So tomorrow I can buy a little more, and the next day, and the next day, and we're going to do this until we're dead. And guess what? It's going to crash a bunch of times. You're probably going to get 10 more.
Yep. And that's the thing I always tell people, that having a savings account, you're just basically giving the bank money so they can get rich off of you in your savings account. That's just my thought. And I think in savings,
Right. And there's a time to save, because like, okay, let's say you say, I want to buy a house. Cool. Straight line. Put money in checking account, save. As soon as you have it, go buy the house. Then you're broke again. And that's fine because you're saving for a point, but just to save, and
have a cushion too, but don't have $250,000 or $100,000 just sitting in an account doing nothing for you. So
Chris Johnson, he keeps all his savings just in the S&P 500. I mean, what is the worst it's going to fall? I mean, 50% maximum worse. And if it falls 50%, a guy like that's probably looking to buy some. Like, so, I don't know, man. Once you've been through a few ups and downs, people got to get that out. And I think the part of the reason the ups and downs scare people is they don't have an abundance mindset. They don't know how they're going to make money next month, next year. They don't know how they're going to replace that money that went away, because in their mind, they can't conceive that it comes back. And then so they're seeing it as a singular transaction. Instead of accumulating shares in Uber for the next 3 to 5 years, they're seeing it as a one-time purchase of Uber shares.
Yes.
So if I'm going to hold it for 5 years, wouldn't I like it to drop by 50% at least 2 or 3 times?
Get a discount or on sale, or however you want to call it, whatever you say. You can buy it at a cheaper price.
That's the importance of a trading group. If you can get into a group, and let's say you got 50 guys that think like I just said, and you can get around them and the market's crashing and they're all like, oh man, this is awesome. That's a different mindset than most groups, Am
I getting through to you?
But you're talking about your 4 stages from your book that you have for sale. Mm-hmm. And how long have you been using these 4 stages, by the way?
Oh man, I guess it's been 10, 12, 13 years, something like that, where I locked in on trading the way that I do now. Like we said in the beginning, I did a lot of crazy stuff prior, and the market is fractal, right? Like you can see that pattern play out that I teach on a 15-minute, on a 1 hour. The guy I learned it from did it on a weekly. To me, that was just way too far out there.
Because you have to wait a lot longer to get into your positions. Yeah.
Right. It was just way too long. I don't necessarily want to, I got things going on during the day. So, for me, I mean, it takes seconds to analyze a stock chart. Once you learn, the money flow, the way I teach it, you look at a chart and I tell you in seconds, buy, sell, or hold. I mean, now obviously there's fundamental research in every trade, but one way I've found to limit how much research I'm constantly having to do is by following the same stocks,
Yep. And then having that method. So, All right. Well, Gerald, I definitely held you a lot longer.
Oh, no worries,
than
man.
Probably expected. I definitely appreciate the fact that you sat down with me and you had a discussion with a dummy who's still learning the stock market. And just so a lot of people know, I'm not really dumb. I actually know my shit. I'm getting there. It's been really rough.
Cool name though. I like it.
Q1.
I like that.
Yeah, thanks, man. Honestly, it came from the fact that I used to buy all these dummy books when I was a kid. Anything I wanted to learn, I would buy a dummy book. So I was like, hey, might as well call this channel Trading with a Dummy. It's following my journey and try to become a full-time trader and investor, and why not go for it? So, you got to make your the guest the dummies.
Yes.
Actually, I have my own little group of like my friends. There's like 24 of my friends. We're in a group together and we call each other dumbasses. That's like that's the joke. So shout out to the dumbasses out there. let people know where they can find you. And by the way, I know your Instagram name is Full Auto 11. Why?
Right.
Where did that come from?
When I got out of the Army, I had a little PTSD, and about that time is when online gaming was at its infancy. Okay. And there was a game called Quake, and it was the first, person shooter game. Mm-hmm. And I logged on, and you needed a name, and I said, "Fuck, Full Auto," like the gun, right? Like I said, Full Auto, and it was said already taken. And I was like, "Oh man." 1-1. Like, I mean, it was that much thought was into that. It was drinking, Full Auto 1-1. And then when I went to other platforms, I was like, well, I'm just keep this shit simple. So I had it for Gmail, I had it for Twitter, Instagram. I just kept it. The only place I couldn't get it was on YouTube, it's 1125. I mean, or YouTube. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's YouTube's the only one. But if you look my name up, it'll pull up.
Pull up everywhere. All right. But where can everyone find you on all the platforms?
Instagram is the main one. Just Full Auto 11. Be careful. There's a lot of fake Full Autos.
Yes. Yes. Those have been happening quite often.
Right. I'm sure. Yeah. You'll start having them if you don't already. So anybody that DMs you to pitch you something is probably ripping you off. What do you say?
Yes. Stop falling for it. People, stop falling for it.
Right. I get it every day. Oh, I sent you Bitcoin. No, you did not.
It wasn't me. It was not me. So are you on Twitter at all?
Yeah. Twitter, Full Auto 11. Same thing.
Also, so it's full. Okay. Yep. Everywhere except on YouTube. On YouTube, they can find you on Full Auto 1125, you said? 25. Right.
Or just Google, just search in there, Gerald Peters. It should bring me up.
Yep. And I'm going to put your link tree below in the description. Okay, cool. Make sure you guys check him out, follow him. He's got a bunch of good information. I'm definitely going to buy the book. And I will probably eventually go through your group as well and review it for my channel. So we'll see.
Cool.
Until then, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thanks for coming on. See you guys later. Right there.